Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much, you and Senator Carper, for holding this hearing. It's a real pleasure to work with Senator Carper on the Recycling Caucus, but also all of us. This is something, the nice thing about this is a very bipartisan issue. It just makes a lot of sense and could be low-hanging fruit that we need to take advantage of. So we do appreciate you guys so much for being here and how you represent common sense stewards of the environment. So tell me, one of the things that we talk about is that, it's great for the environment. We all agree with that. But tell me also about the opportunity that it does in creating jobs. I guess we could say that hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs, this and that. Talk a little bit about that. That's something I think that we don't really talk enough about.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you for the question. I agree. This is a really critical bipartisan issue, and I think that's so important to progress and to success of initiatives that we would put forward. When China closed its doors to U.S. recyclables, it did expose or show this dramatic lack of domestic infrastructure, innovation, or in many cases, investment here. But again, that provides this opportunity to rebuild that infrastructure, to rebuild those jobs, to put more money into the economy in different parts of the U.S. to be able to process recyclables here domestically. I think North and South Carolina, with their Bottles Mean Jobs program, is a really excellent example of that. And I think another key driver or layer around how we can incentivize infrastructure or build out infrastructure in the right places is starting with some baseline data. If we don't know where recycling rates are high or where most of our infrastructure is, if we have the sort of black box of data or lack of data right now, it's really hard to understand where should we put our resources, right? Where should we put our resources for the best return on our investment to create those jobs? But I think that there's real opportunity both in standardized data collection and in building that domestic infrastructure so we can process our packaging here.
No, I agree totally. And in fact, the next thing I was going to bring up was the fact that, with thousands of systems nationwide, nobody knows, what you're supposed to do. And in fact, many of the people that are recycling don't know what to do. It's a huge problem. So I guess the question is, what specifically, what can we do as a Congress, either directly or indirectly by through legislation or incentivizing, people so that we can have some sort of a better system to collect data, better have a better system to standardize. Mm-hmm. What are the keys to getting there? We talked about this a lot, but how do you actually do that?
I think standardized definitions is a really good start. From EPA's work on their America Recycles effort last year, the work of that group found that there are 18 different definitions of recycled or recyclable in the U.S., and that's just the definition of recyclable. Never mind the 10,000 different systems we have to process and handle recycling. So some standardized definitions, I think, is a really good way to start, standardized data collection, so that we can target our investments in the right places.
Mm-hmm. You guys can jump in. Yes.
Yeah, we've worked on this for many years, the harmonization, because we track the amount of plastic that gets recycled domestically or sold export. And the ability to really triangulate that data and look for double counting is based on how companies report this data. So we've looked at harmonizing from a commodity perspective as well as harmonizing how we communicate to the general public. We've worked with many organizations to come up with this consistent way to do that, how we do audits, coming up with consistent methodology through the Association of Plastic Recyclers and the American Chemistry Council. There's been a tremendous amount of work on that. And then specifically, as Megan's saying, the question of recyclability has been completely blown up. It used to be, you had 60% access and you put a recyclable on it and we're good. And that was largely because we became very complacent in sending material to China that was more difficult. Now we're in a whole different ballgame. We worked with, there's been off and on about 5 different brand companies for the last 3 years that had a particular package that was unknown as to whether or not it was deemed recyclable or not based on the last availability recycling study. So we've developed this extensive decision tree to say, without a doubt, if a company is going to make a claim of recyclability, you have to check all of these boxes. And it's, does it flow through the system? Is there market for it? Is there availability? It's a very complex thing, but I almost think that this is a bit of a distraction if we don't fundamentally have value on the material and there's demand for it. And what's drastically lacking, I think, from a measurement perspective is verification when you make a claim of recycled content. That's what creates real demand and gets it so that it's less likely to become litter. And right now, because there's not enough clarity of how to do that, the companies that are leading in that space aren't realizing a true competitive advantage. It's a market failure right now. From a federal government perspective, that would be huge.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you all, and our participant by phone. Thank you all so much for the great work you're doing. And special thanks to Senator Carper and his work and his staff. We know who does all the work with these things. I know it's true in my case, but we do appreciate your efforts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.